Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Legal Hands to the Face show with Bill Colarulo on this Victory Monday. Our Philadelphia Eagles are 8-1 and are the best team in the NFL after beating them boys down in South Philly yesterday. Wasn't always easy. Wasn't always pretty. Definitely took some years off of all of our lives, that's for sure. But as we go into the bye after 9 weeks, the Philadelphia Eagles are the top team in the NFL at 8-1. But welcome into the Legal Hands to the Face show. I see some of my Philly Sports Power Hour crew already in the chat. Good to see everybody. Let's see who's here. Let's get a little roll call. But this show, Legal Hands to the Face, comes to you every Monday night at 6:30. We'll bring you right up to Monday Night Football tonight at 8 o'clock. Be sure, guys, if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, Bill Colarulo, hit that subscribe button. If you're not already subscribed to the JAKIB Sports Network, hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on the podcast, because we do upload the audio to the podcast, be sure to follow the podcast, give us a review, give us a share. The more Philadelphia Eagles fans we could reach, the better. And just a reminder, in addition to doing this show, we come to you live every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock on the JAKIB Sports Network on the Philly Sports Power Hour. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Dave Spadaro, Eagles Insider, like we are every Tuesday. And I see my crew in the chat. It is good to see some of you guys. Matt Lagoy, what is up? Xavier Spencer, Mark DeStefano, Jason A-Team, Ben Kaiser in the chat. My man. My heart is still beating as well. But we have a great show tonight. I'm very excited about our first guest tonight that will be joining us in about 15 minutes. Pro Football Hall of Fame reporter and local legend Ray Didinger will be joining the show around 6:45. So be tuned for that. That's going to be an awesome, awesome guest. And then like we are every single Monday night, we are going to be joined by Dr. Chris Radcliffe to talk about some of these injuries. But let's jump right in, guys. I want to break down that Dallas game before we bring Ray Diddy on the show. Look, let's get the positives out of the way first. Eagles are 8-1, and they just beat a very good Dallas Cowboys team. I know we all hate the Cowboys. I hate the Cowboys just as much as everybody in the chat. But they are a good football team, and they are a team that has a really good defense. We talked about it going into this week. That Dallas defense was very good. Top of the league. Number 3 in yards per game against. Number 4 in points per game against. Number 4 in passing yards against. We knew it was going to be a battle. But the Philadelphia Eagles did enough to win that game. They tried to give it away at the end, and we'll talk about it. But they did enough to win that game. And that was such a big game. If you guys follow me on the Power Hour, I said it last week, that I wasn't going to call it a must-win game this early in the season. But this was as close to a must-win game as you can get that early in Week 9. Because if we were going into this bye at 7-2, tied with the Dallas Cowboys, tied with the Detroit Lions, only a game up on the 49ers and the Seahawks, with the tough stretch of games that they have coming up, this would have been an entirely different feel. But now, I see Mark DeStefano in the chat. We are sitting pretty at the bye. Yeah, we are sitting really pretty at the bye now. That was such a big win for this Eagles team going into the bye. Now 2.5 games up on the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East. 2.5 games up on the Seattle Seahawks, who got crushed by the Baltimore Ravens this weekend. 2.5 games up on the San Francisco 49ers, who were on their bye. And they're a game and a half up on the Detroit Lions. And that's the team that I think has the best chance to try to catch the Eagles for the number 1 seed. And that would be the Detroit Lions with the schedule that they have remaining. And I see Xavier Spencer in the chat saying the same thing. And a reminder to you guys who are only listening to the audio of this podcast, be sure to check out a live stream Monday night, 6:30 on YouTube, so you can comment and engage in the chat. Would love to see you all there. Peter Doty in the house. Good to see you. Dank Kelly Green Burrito. These are guys that I see all the time on the Power Hour every day. So good to see you here at the Legal Hands of the Face show as well. But we were worried in the offseason about a Super Bowl hangover, and rightfully so, because it was a real thing, a Super Bowl hangover. A lot of teams have struggled to start the season after losing a Super Bowl. And the Philadelphia Eagles were not only coming off a Super Bowl loss, they had to replace an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, 2 starting linebackers, basically 2 starting safeties. And to be able to start the season at 8-1, I said it today on the Power Hour, and I'm saying it again. If you look back at the first 9 weeks of this season, as a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you have to deem it as a massive success. To be able to get through a Super Bowl hangover, 2 new coordinators, all the changes and injuries on defense, and to be sitting here with the best record in the NFL and 2.5 games up in the NFC East, you have to be happy. Now, are there things that they need to improve upon? Absolutely, and we're going to talk about them. But we have to be happy. We have to take a moment to enjoy the win, because these wins are just coming at such an incredible clip that we are becoming a spoiled fan base. We are no longer just happy with the wins. Now we're talking about how they should have won by more, how the game shouldn't have been as close at the end. And I agree, this one shouldn't have been. But we got to enjoy the wins too, because the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts are 25-2 in Jalen's last 27 regular season starts. That is incredible, and you have to enjoy it. And I see Fran Iardi in the chat. Good to see you. Joseph Thice, good to see you. Jason A-Team, always in the house. Love it, guys. Love the engagement. If you're here, do me a favor, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel as well. And if you're not already following me on Twitter and Instagram, head on over at Bill Colarulo, at Legal Hands to the Face. We're posting daily content to all those platforms as well. But coming into this game, if you follow me, I had talked about 4 areas, 4 keys to this game that I thought the Eagles needed to do better than Dallas to win this football game. 3rd down, red zone, turnovers, and having a balanced offense. And we went 4 for 4, guys. We went 4 for 4. Coming in, both teams had a really good 3rd down offense. Philadelphia Eagles were number 1 in the NFL coming in on 3rd down. The Dallas Cowboys were number 3 in the NFL on 3rd down. And I talked about it all week. The team who could win on 3rd down was probably going to win this football game. And the Philadelphia Eagles, 50% on 3rd down conversions. The Dallas Cowboys, only 40%. And to take it even one step further, look at 4th down. Philadelphia Eagles go 2 for 2 for a perfect 100% on 4th down. Dallas Cowboys only go 3 for 5. The Eagles won the 3rd down battle. Well, what happened in the red zone? Eagles haven't had a good red zone offense all season, but it's gotten better every single week. We've seen them improve. They were 18th in the league coming in. They go 3 for 3, 100% in the red zone. Xavier Spencer said it in the chat. 3 for 3 in the red zone. Dallas Cowboys, 3 for 5, 60%. Dallas converts in the red zone. This is a different ball game. But the Philadelphia Eagles did what they had to do, in the red zone. They won third down. They won the red zone. So now we're 2 for 2. Well, what else did we talk about? Turnovers. This Dallas defense was an opportunistic defense. I said it all week. They were winning football games by turning over these opposing offenses. In Dallas's 5 wins, they had a turnover differential of plus 10. And in their 2 losses, they had a turnover differential of minus 4. The Eagles could not afford to turn the ball over, and they got a little lucky in this one because they put the ball on the ground 3 different times, but thankfully, they jumped on it all 3. One was a stripped sack of Jalen, and then 2 others were fumbles by DeAndre Swift. The one at the end of the game could have been a disaster, but rookie Tyler Steen with the best play of his career so far, definitely the best play of his game because he didn't play that great, jumps on that ball. So now you won third down, you won red zone, and they actually win the turnover battle because at the last play of the game was considered a fumble for Dallas that was recovered by the Eagles. So the Eagles win the turnover battle, go +1 on the day. And then the last thing we wanted was a balanced offense. Talked about it all week leading up to this game. Again, in Dallas's 5 wins, the opposing teams only averaged 74 yards rushing. And in their 2 losses, the opposing teams averaged 196 yards rushing. Running game didn't really work that effectively, and we're going to talk about it because I have my concerns about this running game. But they stuck with it. They ran for 109 yards, only averaged about 3.3 yards a carry in that game. But they stuck with it, and they were balanced. 33 runs, 23 passes. We went 4 for 4 on what I thought the keys to the game were. And they win this football game. And there's a lot of things that we need to talk about with that defense. A lot of things they need to clean up. But I see Ben Kaiser in the chat, and he hit the nail on the head of what I was going to say. As bad as things were, as many yards as they gave up to CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, this Eagles defense held the Dallas Cowboys to only 6 points in the second half. That is incredible in this league. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, well, they were only an inch away from 1 touchdown. Dak stepped out on that 2-point conversion. It could have been a lot more than 6 points, but it wasn't. The Eagles defense did what they had to do to win this football game. It wasn't always pretty. They tried to give them the game at the end. 3 penalties on that final drive consecutively for the Philadelphia Eagles. Never should have had a chance, the Dallas Cowboys. They had the ball on their own 14-yard line with only 46 seconds left, and the Eagles go pass interference on James Bradbury, roughing the passer on Hassan Reddick, offsides on Jalen Carter, gives Dallas the ball at the Eagles' 6-yard line, first down. But then Dallas became Dallas. They played great the whole game, but then Dallas became Dallas. They get a false start. They let up a big sack to Josh Sweat. They get a delay of game penalty. And then they throw that short pass to CeeDee Lamb where the Eagles are able to stop him before the goal line. So this defense did enough, and we're going to talk more about it. I want to get Ray Didinger's opinion as well on this defense and areas that they can improve. But this is a great time to welcome in for the first time to the Legal Hands to the Face show, Pro Football Hall of Fame reporter, Philadelphia legend, Ray Didinger. Ray, thanks for joining the show, my man. How you doing?
Fine, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ray. We're sitting here 8-1 at the bye. We've won 25 out of 27 games. We are becoming such a spoiled fan base, but I love every second of it.
Yeah, you do get that feeling. It's a lot of people asking me today, what are they going to do with this team? Every game comes right down to the wire, and you're 8-1. You're 8-1, and you're pretty much in control of the NFC. I think you're sitting in a pretty good spot right now. And their performance through half the season has been up and down. I think that's fair to say. But at the end of games, they've made the plays they've had to make to come away with the win. And that's in the NFL today, the way the league is set up now, there are no super teams. There are no perfect Dolphins. There's no steel curtain. There's none of the, the mighty Cowboy team, the doomsday defense Cowboys. I mean, there was a time when every so often, in the year, you would have a couple of teams that just were way, way above the pack. And if you weren't one of those teams, you were playing for third place. That's not the NFL today. That's the NFL as we know it. It's a very fluid situation. And even if you're the best team, you're not necessarily the best team by this much. And that's kind of where the Eagles are right now. I mean, they're 8-1, but every game, it seems like, comes right down to the wire. And yesterday was no exception.
You're spot on. And you hear some of these stats, though. I said it before you came on, 25-2 in their last 27 games. Mm-hmm. I saw John McMullen here on the JAKIB Sports Network give a stat that they've had the best record in the NFL for 27 straight weeks now, I think. But these are things you don't see anymore in the NFL. This is stuff you see at the college level. How impressed are you, though, what Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni have been able to do over the last 2.5 seasons now?
Very impressed, because you've got two guys who it wasn't that long ago, everybody wondered if they were up to the task. Certainly the selection of Jalen Hurts when they took him in the draft was very much questioned. A lot of people, what in the world are you drafting a quarterback in the second round when you've already made the commitment you've made to Carson Wentz, and we're not even sure if Jalen Hurts is really going to be an NFL quarterback. We heard that a lot. And, Nick Sirianni was a guy that nobody knew who he was. And here you are now where you've got a coach and a quarterback who do nothing but win. It's pretty remarkable. But, I thought coming into this season, and when I was on JAKIB before the season started, I was on with Derek and Rob Ellis. And I said at that time that I thought that this is the first time that I could ever remember, and I've been covering this team for more than 50 years. I started covering them in 1970. This is the first time going into a season where I honestly could say, I think the Eagles have the best roster in the NFL. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL going into the season. I felt that in week one. And here we are midway through the season, and they have the best record, and we'll see if they can sustain it. But I mean, I think we all kind of knew coming into the season that they were really good. And if they could stay reasonably healthy, that they could do some pretty special things. And right now that's where they are. I mean, they're in a really good position in the NFC now. That was a monster big win yesterday, to give the Cowboys the third loss and push them a little bit further down. I mean, right now, you got a couple of three loss teams. San Francisco's lost 3. Seattle's lost 3. Bad loss yesterday. Cowboys have now lost 3. I mean, the only team that's kind of like right over your shoulder are the Lions with 2. But, the Eagles are going into their bye week. They're sitting in a really, really good spot.
Definitely are. But what do you think about that Cowboys team? Because I know we all hate the Cowboys in Philadelphia, but I think they have a pretty good team this year, and I thought they played a pretty good game yesterday.
They did. They are good. They are good. They've got really good players, really a lot of talent on that team. They do things during the course of the game that puzzle me sometimes. I've always had some questions about Mike McCarthy as a coach. There's always been things about the way he runs the team, runs a game that I've always found puzzling. And this year, when he took over, in addition to being the head coach, being his own offensive coordinator, I thought there would be some weeks where you'd just really be scratching your head saying, what are they doing? And yesterday was kind of like that too. I mean, they made a lot of big plays. They moved the ball. I mean, they had about 170 yards in offense just in the fourth quarter, but they kept coming close, but they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And when they got it down at that last possession, they got it down to the 6-yard line. And next thing you know, they're back at the 30. A couple of bad sacks, a couple of bad calls. They look like a team that's got a lot of talent. They can put up a lot of numbers, but they're not real good at closing out games. If they get ahead early and they get a team on the run, they can bury them like they did with the Rams a week ago. I mean, that was 33-3 at halftime. If they get it rolling, they can embarrass you. They did it to the Giants in week 1. The Giants still haven't recovered. So they have that kind of ability. But if you can hang with them and get them into a close game into the fourth quarter, I always kind of think that the Cowboys, the Eagles are good at finding ways to win. And I think the Cowboys still look like a team that will find a way to lose.
Yeah, it's almost like things snowball one way or the other for the Cowboys. Either they're going to completely dominate a team or things are going to just fall off the rails. But they did stick with it a little bit yesterday. I was surprised when they went down 28-17. I thought it was 100% over. But Cowboys did battle back, and the Eagles got a little bit lucky, especially I talked about it before you came on, that Eagles put the ball on the ground 3 times yesterday. Thankfully, they jumped on all 3. But that last one where Swift ran into A.J. Brown, that could have been a disaster, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was butt fumble 2.0, and I mean that could have cost you the game right there. The Eagles have to stop doing that. I mean, that's the one thing about them that's sort of troubling. You keep thinking for a couple of weeks there, you kind of think, that's just okay. That was this week. They were sloppy this week, but here you are. I mean, you're 8-1, which is good, but you're also minus in giveaway takeaway. That's very unusual, and that kind of thing doesn't generally play well late in the season and in big games. You better not be losing giveaway takeaway late in the season and especially in the postseason, because if you do, you're going home. So that's one of the things. And look, I know the coaches are talking about it. I know they're stressing it. I'm sure it's a point of emphasis every day, is take care of the football. And I'm sure they've talked about it, but again, yesterday, it didn't cost them the game, but it could have. I mean, the Swift fumble at the end that could have been a killer. It turned out not to be. I mean, the only game you lost, the game up at the Jets, which to me is still hard to fathom, but I mean, you lost that one by turning the ball over. The final interception that Hurst throws, it gets picked off and run back. That cost you the game there. That's just one game, and you've survived it to this point. But you make that kind of a mistake in the playoffs against a good team, that could send you home.
Even with the other 3 turnovers in that Jets game, if they didn't throw that last interception, they probably win that football game, just punting it away.
Oh, sure.
But look, and I want to preface this because sometimes people in the chat get upset that we're being too negative. I am enjoying the fact that they are 8-1. I think this is a very good football team, but there are areas that we need to talk about that they can improve. And one of them is turnovers. Another one is this passing defense. Last year, say what you will about Jonathan Gannon, and I had my problems with Jonathan Gannon, but they had the number 1 passing defense in the entire NFL when the dust settled after that regular season. They are near the bottom of the NFL in passing yards per game right now. What do you think's going on with that secondary?
Changes, different personnel. I mean, pretty much week after week, due to injury or just change, they've been shuffling the deck. And you got a new defensive coordinator. There's just a lot of new people and a lot of moving parts back there. And as a result, I mean, a lot of what you see is communication issues. I mean, guys just not on the same page. Guys not exactly sure where the coverage is going to be. Opposing receivers running wide open. And I think a lot of it, I don't know that it's the fault of the defensive coordinator, but I think it's just a matter of they're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to figure out. I know the 2 cornerbacks are back, but the safety position has been in flux all year. The loss of Avonte Maddox before the season started was really a big thing. I mean, I know people don't think of him as a star, quote unquote, but he was very good as your slot defender. And in today's NFL, that guy's important because most teams are going to run a lot of slot formation stuff. And you better have a defender in there that can match up. And Maddox could. And when they lost him, they've been trying to find an answer in there ever since. So that's been one part of it. And you just hope the second half of the year, with a little bit more time to play together, if they don't get any more injuries, The addition of Biard, I think, is going to help. I mean, he's been a guy that's been a very good player over time. I mean, a Pro Bowl level player. And I'm a real fan of Sidney Brown. I really am. I thought that I saw him play at Illinois. I thought he was a real good prospect. And when the Eagles got him in the third round, I thought it was a real good pick. And, I think he's going to be a really good player on this team. Now, he's still just trying to get his feet on the ground in the NFL, but he's gotten a lot of experience here the first half of the year, and I think he'll be better for it in the second.
And I said when they drafted him that once he puts it all together on that field, I think he's going to be an immediate fan favorite in this town, the way he throws his body around. And we've already seen some evidence of that. He can hit, man. He's
a very physical player, and not the biggest guy, certainly, but fearless and smart, always around the ball. And I really liked him. I mean, at Illinois last year, they had a very good pass defense. They had a really good secondary. I mean, they had Witherspoon at one corner,
who looks really good.
Yeah, and is he's people are talking about him as maybe defensive rookie of the year along with Carter. I mean, he's playing that well, and I'm not surprised. He's very good. But when the coaches voted for defensive player of the year in the Big Ten last year, they picked Sidney Brown. They didn't pick Witherspoon, even though Witherspoon got drafted in the first round and Brown in the third. In terms of game in, game out performance, they graded Brown higher, and so did I. So when the Eagles were able to get him in the third round, I thought that was a steal. And I think the more he plays and the more people get to see him play, the people are going to realize, boy, glad that he came to Philadelphia.
But what do you think about with Sidney Brown? Because as of right now, out of necessity, they have him playing the slot position. Because you mentioned Devontae Maddox got hurt. Another guy who got hurt early, unfortunately, was Zach McPherson, who I thought could have stepped in when Maddox went down, but McPherson got hurt before Maddox even got hurt. Do you think Sidney Brown's playing out of position, or do you think he can handle being that slot player, or does he have to play safety?
I don't think that's his strength. I mean, right now he may be your best option there, but I think he's a natural safety. I think once you're able to put him there and just let him settle in there, then you'll see a really rapid development. Now that was the original plan, was to draft him because they needed safeties. Frankly, coming into the year, they didn't have any. And so the plan was to give him an opportunity to play back there. Because of the injury situation, have kind of been forced to make him a slot corner, but I don't think that was the original blueprint. And he's given it his best shot, and look, he's playing okay. If he gets matched up, if a team goes into a formation where they put like a CD Lamb in the slot, well, that's going to be a really tough matchup for Sidney Brown right now. But I think that ultimately his position is going to be at safety, and and if they can, I've tried to work Ricks in there. He's played a little bit in there, and he's looked okay at times. But this is what Sean's trying to figure out. He's trying to figure out who he's got. He knows what he's got with Bradbury. He knows what he's got with Slay. That's okay. He's got that. But the rest of it, from week to week, depending on the opponent, depending on the receivers, depending on the matchups and the scheme, he's going to kind of have to try and reinvent that secondary. And I think that's really the root of the problem. I think it's been a lot of change in a relatively short period of time.
You mentioned he knows what he has in Bradbury and Slay. And there's been some people who are really down on both of those guys. I think they've had some up and down games. I didn't think Bradbury played very well against Dallas on Sunday. I think there's been times where Slay hasn't looked like the Slay of old. Do you think that's just because of the revolving door that we've seen at slot and safety that's affecting those two guys, or do you think maybe they're starting to lose a step?
It could be a little bit of both. You've got two cornerbacks that are both over 30, and that's not typical. That's a position that in the NFL you can get old quick. And you talk about the receivers in this league and the passing game in this league and the people you're matched up against. Once you get over 30, that's tough. And to have two 30-year-old corners, that's double tough. Now, they're both very heady players, and they're really smart. And they will play well most of the time. But I mean, you're quite right. I mean, they have had their problems, as has everybody back in the secondary has had their problems. And I'm not saying I'm worried about them, because I think they're smart pros, and from week to week they'll do what they need to do to get ready to play. But when you come out of this bye, you look at that stretch of games that you got coming up and the teams you're going to have to play against. And if the Eagles are going to keep winning, if they're going to keep this thing rolling, your secondary is going to have to play better. And that's going to start with the two corners, because they're your two veterans.
And I mentioned earlier how they had the number one pass defense last year. A lot of what helped them there was how good the defensive line was, setting a record for the most sacks in the regular season for the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think about the D-line so far this season? They obviously lost Javon Hargrave. They replaced him with Baby Rhino, Jalen Carter. What do you think about the D-line this season?
It's really good. It's very good. I mean, you see they've been very hard to run against, number one run defense in the league. And they get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. It certainly got a lot of pressure in situations where they needed it. I think that's one of the things that you see with this Eagles team to this point, is late in games when the other team's trying to drive the ball on the last possession or two. The pass rush really steps up and has shown an ability to close games out. We saw Reddick do it a couple of times, get late sacks, put games away. And yesterday, the sack by Josh Sweat was a huge sack. I mean, really, really put that Cowboy offense in reverse. And then Brandon Graham, the old pro, I mean, he's not getting a whole lot of snaps these days, but he's enough of a veteran that he understands in that situation what needs to be done. And, the Cowboy was having a tough day yesterday. And Brandon saw it, knew exactly what to do, set him up, goes to the outside, cuts to the inside, clear path to Dak Prescott. He gets a sack too. It's really great to have a guy like Graham, who's as smart as he is and as instinctive as he is, to have him as sort of a fourth quarter wild card, to have him fresh come in the fourth quarter, because he has an ability to, when you're close to closing a game out, he can kind of smell it. And, and if you need a big sack, even at this point in his career, he'll get it. And he got a couple of them yesterday.
And had a real nice play on that 2-point conversion where Dak steps out of bounds. But if you look, BG's hustling, man, trying to get to that corner to not make it easy on Dak, puts a little pressure on him. Dak steps out of bounds. So BG can always step up in a big moment. Obviously, none bigger than Super Bowl 52, but yep. BG is going to go down as one of the best to ever do it in this town. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's played more games than any defensive lineman in the history of the franchise. And the Eagles go back to 1933, and they've had a lot of really good defensive linemen come through here. And at this point, Brandon Graham has played more games than any of them, and he's really, he's the definition of a pro. He's really the definition of a pro. I mean, he really, for a guy that got off to a tough start in this town, a lot of questions being asked. Why did they draft this guy? And then, he gets an early injury and he's missing time. And I mean, people are calling him a bust. I mean, it's hard to remember. Yeah. It's hard to remember now because you're going back more than 10 years. But I mean, year 2, year 3, people are starting to call him a bust. And here he is now as a guy with no question he's going to be in the Eagles Hall of Fame. And at this point, he's already played more games on the defensive line than anybody in the history of the franchise. So I think that speaks well for the kind of player that he is.
And if he gets 2 more games, BG stays healthy for 2 more games, he will have the most games played in franchise history of any player. Right now, he's 1 game behind David Akers. So he needs 1 more to tie Akers and then 2 more to have the most games played in franchise history. And it's crazy because you got right behind him, Kelsey is probably going to break the record this year too, as well as Fletcher Cox. All 3 of those guys will finish 1, 2, and 3 in franchise history for most games played after this season.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And when you're talking about, Fletcher and Brandon are both first-round picks. But Kelsey might even be more amazing than either of them because he came in as a 6th-round pick. He walked into training camp. Nobody knew who he was. Says, who's this guy? and he stepped
Everybody
away.
knows him now, Ray.
I'll
Everybody.
tell you. I mean, yeah. I mean, he came in that first year and beat out a pretty good player in Jamal Jackson. Howard Mudd, the offensive line coach, liked Jason right away. I immediately saw that he was exactly what he wanted at the center position, and he stepped in and he's never left. And he's going to go down as one of the all-time, not just one of the all-time best players in the history of the franchise, but one of the all-time great personalities in the history of the franchise.
I know his podcast now is more famous than ever because of all this Taylor Swift mess. I'm so sick of hearing about all that stuff, but it's great. It's great for the NFL. It's bringing in a lot of new fans, that's for sure.
It really is. It really is. I mean, people don't understand that part of it, but I mean, if you look at the ratings, I mean, there are people that aren't football fans that are now tuning in on weekends to watch Kansas City games to see if Taylor Swift is there. It's and the NFL loves it. The more people they can bring into the tent, the better.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Monday night coming out of the bye what happens if she's going to be in Kansas City for that game against the Eagles, because I believe she was an Eagles fan before all this happened.
She was, of sorts. I don't know that she was a big Eagles fan. The first time I ever saw Taylor Swift, I mean, she was a high school kid who came to the Wells Fargo Center to sing the national anthem before a Sixers game. She came down and sang the anthem at a Sixers game, and she was 11th grader, 12th grader. Nobody knew who she was, but I was there that night. I thought, wow, she's really good. Well, turns out that's Taylor Swift. Now, I don't know how much of a football fan she was, or even a basketball fan.
Yeah.
But this was certainly her quote unquote home team. But now, I think everybody knows where her allegiances are. They're with the world champions.
Man, I didn't realize she sang the national anthem for the Sixers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that is pretty cool. So, you mentioned earlier you've been doing this for 50 years. So you have seen the NFL really change over the years. And in this town, a lot of people remember those Buddy Ryan defenses, and all they want to talk about is, and I see my uncle's actually in the chat, we need to blitz more. We need to blitz more. So I want to get Ray Didinger's thoughts, because obviously the NFL has changed. But in this game against the Dallas Cowboys, Eagles only blitzed 13% of the time. Dak Prescott dropped back 53 times. Eagles only blitzed him 7 of those 53 times. But what do you think? So far this year, I'll give you the rate here. They're blitzing about 24% of the time before that Dallas game. Puts them middle of the pack of the league.
I was going to say that's about average.
Yeah, teams just don't blitz a lot. There's a few who do. I think Wink Martindale at the Giants blitzes a ton. The Tampa Bay Bucs D coordinator blitzes a ton. But what do you think? Are you more in the school of thought that the NFL has evolved and changed, that blitzing is more of a thing of the past?
It changed a lot. I think the issue is, and yes, it's everything about that. Well, it's not just football, but all sports. There's a constant evolution, and the game never stays the same. And it kind of goes in circles and it goes in cycles. And something that was new once time gets old, and then it winds up becoming new again. The wheel just keeps going around. But right now we're in a cycle where everything on offense right now is spread the field and get the ball out of the quarterback's hands fast. I mean, the only thing whenever you talk to offense, whenever you hear head coaches or offensive coordinators talk, the thing that they stress, regardless of who the quarterback is, the thing that they always stress is get balls coming out fast. You've got to get the ball out fast. I mean, 2.1 seconds, 2.2 seconds. So if you blitz, even if you blitz, it's hard to get to a quarterback if he's getting the ball off in 2 seconds. And if you commit extra guys to the blitz, now you're thin on the back end. And if that ball's coming out, there's fewer defenders there to play it. So I know there's in Philadelphia especially, people just hold on to the memory of that Buddy Ryan defense and the 46 and going after the quarterback on every play. Which, hey, listen, that was fun. It was fun. It wasn't fun for the quarterbacks, but it was fun football to watch. But now, I mean, you can't do that. I mean, you couldn't. And I don't think Buddy would even want. Well, maybe Buddy would. I was going to say even Buddy wouldn't be blitzing on every down. But knowing Buddy, maybe he would. But the fact is, it just can't be as effective because the offenses have changed to the point where that ball's coming out so fast, and you got max protect. I think what you have to do, what teams have to do, is I think they have. To me, you need better coordination between the front seven and the back of your defense. If you're going to rush the passer, you can't have your secondary playing off. You can't have your secondary playing real soft on defense. You can't go total zone back there because if that ball's coming out fast, you can't give him that quick release pass. You can't give him that quick look pass. You got to make him hold that ball, pat that ball, and give your rush a chance to get home. I think the Eagles pass rush, they have enough good pass rushers that they don't have to blitz a lot. I mean, their defensive line men are good enough that they can generate a pass rush. But I think sometimes you have to tighten up the coverage in the secondary to give that rush a chance to get home.
Yeah, that was so frustrating against the Washington Commanders 2 weeks ago. Was it became clear right away they were trying to get rid of the ball quickly. They wanted the ball out of Howe's hands quickly, but the corners were still 8 to 10 yards off the ball. Right. I did think in this Dallas game that the corners were playing at times closer to the line of scrimmage, but they let CeeDee Lamb just dominate them from the slot. And that was a little bit concerning, but he's a good player, definitely a good player, but I felt like maybe they should have done some different things to try to slow him down a little bit.
They tried, but I mean, he's really good. And he and Dak right now really have a real good feel for each other. I mean, you saw it the last 2 or 3 games. I mean, they killed the Rams and they lit up the Eagles yesterday. I mean, right now the two of them have a really good feel for what they want to do. And Lamb is he's just really good. I mean, he's very good at running routes. And even if you try to double him, even if you try to bracket him, he's really good at finding the holes in the secondary. And he has a really devastating double move, which he threw at the Eagles a couple times yesterday and got big plays on it. Yeah, I mean, everybody goes into the game and you know who he is and you know where he is, and your game plan is obviously to try and limit him and what he can do. But it's really hard. I mean, he's one of those guys, a little bit like A.J. Brown. I mean, there's a handful of those receivers in the league that, I mean, everybody spends all week trying to figure out ways to defend them and ways to slow them down. And they're so good that it's just hard to do.
You mentioned A.J. Brown, and I need your opinion on this, Ray. Best wide receiver the Philadelphia Eagles have ever had?
Not ready to say that yet. I mean, you got a couple. You got a couple that are in the Hall of Fame, and you still got to give them their due. Pete Pijos in the 50s, Tommy McDonald in the 60s, Harold Carmichael 70s and 80s. I mean, they're all got busts and Canton, so they're pretty special players. But AJ, he's right now. I think he's the best receiver in football right now. I mean, if I was, there's nobody in no receiver in the league, in my view, that I would rather be throwing the ball to than him. Now I know Justin Jefferson's out right now with an injury, but even if Jefferson were playing, and I really like Jefferson, I think he's an outstanding player. But honestly, I mean, Brown to me is a more physically dominant player. And I think he's the best receiver in the NFL right now. But the best receiver in Eagles history, I'm not quite ready to go quite there yet. But listen, he's, as far as in the NFL at this very moment, yeah, I would put him number one.
Yeah, he's doing some impressive things. But you're right. It's everybody knows the Eagles are going to try to get him the ball, but yet he always is open. That's what he says, right? He's always open. But let me ask you,
and he is, and he's so strong, and he's got really good hands. You don't see him drop a pass. I mean, he's got really, really good hands, and the pairing of he and Smith is really good. I mean, it's, as I said, I think Brown is the best receiver in the league, but I think Brown and Smith together are the best pair of receivers in the league, and they are they're a headache for defensive coordinators. Now, the Eagles took a blow now with the loss of Dallas Goedert. I mean, when you had Goddard in there as your tight end, then you really had three significant weapons in terms of getting downfield. Losing Goddard is going to hurt you. I mean, those two other guys are still going to get their numbers, but the Eagles are going to miss Dallas Goedert.
What I'm really concerned about with them losing Dallas Goedert is something I wanted to talk to you about is their running game, because Goddard is such a good run blocker and makes it difficult on these defenses because he also has the ability to catch the ball. But it's like having another offensive lineman on the field with how good he run blocks. But this running game, even with Dallas Goedert, has struggled over the last few weeks. And I've looked at the numbers really after that Tampa Bay Bucs game where they had two really good rushing games in a row, Minnesota and Tampa Bay. They haven't really done a great job running the football. The average yards per carry for the running backs went 3.9, 3.6, 2.3, 3.4, 2.9, down to 3.1 again yesterday. What do you think's going on why this team can't run the football as effectively as last year? And before you answer, prime example, end of the game yesterday. Eagles get the ball back with 6 minutes. Last year's offense would have probably gone on a 4 or 5 minute drive, pounding the football, never even given the Dallas Cowboys a chance to get it back. Eagles go 3 and out. They then get the ball back with 1:17 left. Go 3 and out again because they haven't been able to effectively run the football. What do you think's going on?
I think they've gotten away from it too readily. I think it's a little bit of the old Andy trap that you start the game, you try to run it a series or 2 series, you're not very successful, and then they just say, "Oh, the heck with it," and they start throwing it. And I think to be a good running team, you have to run the ball. You have to really commit to it. And I'm not suggesting you run it 50 times. I mean, nobody does that in today's NFL. But, I mean, you know how good this offensive line is. I mean, they really are. And I think some people have suggested that, when Cam Jurgens went out and they've had moved a Petta in there for a couple of games, the performance of the offensive line suffered a little bit. Well, I think that's probably true. But I don't think that's the sole reason you're having trouble running the ball. They just never seem to be able to sustain, for the lack of a better term, a rhythm in a running game. They run it once and get away from it, then run it another time, maybe 2 times, and get away from it. And I think you just kind of need to stay with it and really allow the offensive line to get that flow going and getting the backs timed up and just getting the rhythm in the running game. I just don't think that the play calling has lent itself to that. I really thought you'd see more of it yesterday because the Cowboys had the 2 games that they had lost prior to that. The teams beat them basically by running the football. I mean, Arizona ran for 220 yards on them. That was how Arizona beat them. And San Francisco ran for, I think, like 175, and that was how they beat them. So that seemed to be the formula for beating the Cowboys, was to run the ball. And I thought, okay, this to me looks like a game where the Eagles are going to come out and, run it more. And they did a little bit. I mean, but you didn't really see them dominate the game on the ground. They certainly didn't dominate the game on the ground. It'll be interesting to see coming out of the bye when you're going into a stretch of playing really good teams, certainly better teams than what you've played to this point, what the offensive approach is, and if they start to run the ball, if they have some more success. Because we know we're getting into that November, December part of the season, where the weather's going to get a little nastier. And the competition's going to get a little tougher. And, running the football is going to be a big part of your offense because some weeks it's just going to be hard to throw it. And I think the Eagles need to kind of work on that and generate a little bit more of that to be the best team that they can be when they get into December, January.
All right, 2 last questions for you, Ray, before I let you out the door here. We're about halfway through the season, actually exactly halfway through the season here. What grade would you give the 2 new coordinators, Brian Johnson and Sean Desai, through 9 games?
You're 8-1. So, you got to give them, they've got the best record in the league. So you got to give them a pretty good grade. I would say B+ on both of them. I mean, I could probably tell you, I can probably point out this thing or that thing that I might have done differently, questions I had, things that had me scratching my head. But they're, it's not that much. I mean, they've in big situations in games, in the second half of games when they had to make plays on both sides of the ball, I thought that they showed the ability to do that. And I think that, I really didn't know that much about either one of them because neither one of them really had a track record as a coordinator. So it isn't like, okay, I know exactly what this guy's philosophy is. I know exactly what his approach is going to be. So I know what to expect. I didn't really know what to expect with either of them. And at this point, I got to say, I think they've done a really good job. I mean, it's been a tough job for Desai because he's had so much how many new players he's had to cycle through there. A little less so on the other side with Johnson. But I think both of them, if I were to grade them, I'd say I'd give them both a solid B+.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment, right? Well, Ray, I really appreciate you joining us, man. First time we've ever had Ray Didinger on the Legal Hands of the Face show, an absolute legend. So I appreciate you making the time, and I know our fans in the chat did as well. So thank you, Ray. Hopefully we'll see you again soon, brother.
Always a pleasure, Bill. Take care and have enjoy your bye week.
Exactly. Have a good night.
Take care. You too.
Oh, man, Ray Didinger, an absolute legend. I could listen to him talk football all night long. So he gave us a lot of time here, said some good stuff, and I agree with him. Rating these coordinators as B+. If you guys follow the Philly Sports Power Hour, I said it today. Look, I know we were angry about some of the things that happened in that Dallas game, especially in that secondary. But when do we start putting some blame on the players? We always want to blame the coaches. Eagles give up a lot of passing yards. It's the coach's fault. It's the defensive coordinator's fault. Well, sometimes the players need to take responsibility as well for not executing on the field. So I do think that Desai and Brian Johnson are doing a pretty decent job. I've questioned some play calls from Brian Johnson, but I think he's gotten better. And we saw some creativity yesterday in the red zone. I thought that they were very creative in the red zone, go 3 for 3. Also liked when they came out in that 2-back set, lined up DeAndre Swift in the slot, had him come in motion, had Kenny Gainwell lead blocking for him on that play. That was a nice designed play. So I think they're getting better. I think we're doing pretty good. But, guys, when we come back, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Dr. Chris Radcliffe. I want to talk to him about this Dallas Goedert injury, what the reports are there, Jalen Hurts' knee, how Jalen Hurts was able to bounce back and come out in that second half because that did not look good. And we'll see what Dr. Radcliffe thinks about Cam Jurgens and his ability to hopefully come back after the bye. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
There is a reason why the Garden Medical Spa, with 4 locations in New Jersey, has arguably the best customer reviews in America for a boutique medical spa. At the Garden Medical Spa, there is no fluff, just results. For the best in Botox, chemical peels, dermal fillers, hydrofacials, laser hair removal, and so much more, please visit thegardenmedspa.com. Book an appointment now in Voorhees, Sewell, Collingswood, or Northfield. Thegardenmedspa.com. No fluff, just results.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face show. We are now joined, like we are every week, by my man, Dr. Chris Radcliffe. What's up, Doc? How you doing tonight?
Hey, buddy. How are you? It's great to see you.
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. We're hitting the bye week, 8-1, best team in the NFL.
That's awesome.
And for those of you guys who are here watching who don't know Dr. Chris Radcliffe, he joins us every week at 7:30. And I always love to throw this around. Harvard educated, Duke Medical School, used to work for the Philadelphia Eagles. I feel like I need to preface that with our man, Dr. Radcliffe. Unfortunately, last week he was in the operating room and he wasn't going to miss the show. He tried to come, but that damn hospital Wi-Fi couldn't get him here.
Yeah.
Couldn't get him
We had
here.
a lot to talk about, too, with Jalen Hurts' knee last week and again this week.
Yeah, so let's start off with Jalen Hurts because clearly he's the biggest story. Last week, we talked a little bit about it. He's in that brace. The reports were that it was a bone bruise.
Yeah.
And the question I was actually asking you last week when we got cut off is how could a brace help a bone bruise? And if you thought that was what he was dealing with or if it could have been something else.
Yeah, so I think that it's likely that it's a bone bruise where the kneecap contacts the femur because that location would be vulnerable to like an injury, a direct blow. Basically, if you hit the kneecap hard enough, you would push it back into the femur, and then you could certainly have a bone bruise, in particular on the femur. That's pretty common. In that case, the knee brace would essentially hold the kneecap in the proper position and would kind of keep it from moving out of the small groove that's on the front of the femur that defines where the kneecap lives. The front of our femurs are like a valley, like a V, and the kneecap is like sort of sits in that little valley, in that groove. So that's what I think it is. The other possibilities are more ominous, honestly. You can have a bone bruise when you rupture your ACL. And I guess it's possible if you had a partial ACL injury, a partial injury to the anterior cruciate ligament, which normally keeps the tibia from sliding out too far in front of the femur, then, so if you had a sprain of that, a small soft tissue injury to that, then you could also develop a bone bruise there. But those are usually more serious because there's a degree of instability that comes from that ACL being damaged. And so I would expect that he would be at least at some sort of limited weight bearing or something if that was the case. So I think it's a bone bruise where the femur attaches, where the femur and patella articulate. It's unfortunate because the injury this week of obviously one of the Cowboys striking him on the knee kind of would certainly aggravate that and would maybe make that more acutely painful. So hopefully with the bye week and we get some rest, he'll be good to go.
Doc, my heart sank when he got hit low there at the end of that first half because it looked like not only that he got hit on the knee, it looked like his leg almost hyperextended in a way that it's not supposed to. But thankfully, it looks like we dodged a bullet there. Did you see the same thing I saw where his leg kind of buckled the wrong way?
I did, yeah. And so that's what the cruciate ligaments hold, and that's what they do. The PCL, the posterior cruciate ligament, keeps the femur from going like kind of too far in that position, and as well as the ACL, and they kind of work in tandem. And so, yeah, I was very worried about that. I think that it's kind of a testament to the training and muscular, sort of strength these guys have, because the muscles are also stabilizers of the knee. So, even when you reach the point where the ligaments are being stretched to their limit, if you have good muscle tone, you could still keep from having a knee dislocation. And luckily, we didn't see his knee like just totally dislocate out of socket. Yeah, I think it's good that he was able to continue to weight bear. It's good that he was able to continue to play. Obviously he was having some pain, but there's nothing to do for a bone bruise, surgically. You can't cut it out. You can't, sort of do any kind of repair on it. It's just gotta go away with time.
And when you say go away with time, assuming it's just a bone bruise, let's hope, what does it look like to get back to 100%? Is this something that's going to linger all season long, or will it get better quickly, hopefully?
So, but for that injury this Sunday, I would be pretty optimistic that with a little bit of rest and the bye week, that he could be, kind of back to almost 100% by the time we're playing Kansas City. I'm a little concerned that this certainly could have set us back a bit, this recent injury, because that area is already inflamed and probably somewhat weakened, and some of the bone is probably already kind of remodeling, and to strike it again while it's in that damaged, vulnerable state is it looked excruciatingly painful. And it is there's a potential for this to linger, I think, through the rest of the season now.
So just switching to football again for 1 second from the medical stuff. So you say it looks so painful. This is what I love about Jalen Hurts, and this is what I said this morning on my Power Hour show, and I know everyone here watching agrees with me. He can barely get up after he takes that hit, limps into the locker room, is the last person out of the locker room coming out of the second half. And what does he do on the first two drives of the second half? He leads them on 2 touchdown drives, goes 6 of 7 for 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, throws a strike to Devontae Smith in the corner of the end zone for a 29-yard touchdown. This is why we are lucky that Jalen Hurts is our franchise quarterback, because like you said, Doc, he was obviously in a lot of pain. He was obviously not 100%. And those 2 drives right out of the half changed the entire complexion of that game. They go up 28-17, and Dallas was never able to recover. But
what did he say? He said he'd do anything for his city and his team.
That's right, man.
And
Gave me
what does Nick
goosebumps.
Sirianni say? He's a warrior.
Gave me
True.
goosebumps.
He totally is.
He really is, man. I love Jalen Hurts. I say it every day. I really do. I love that guy. But now let's stay on the offensive side of the ball for a second and talk about another big injury from this Dallas game, and that was Dallas Goedert. Fractures his forearm is what's being reported. It was also reported today that he's going to get surgery as soon as today, potentially, but they're only expecting him to be out approximately 4 weeks. How's that possible?
So I guess it depends on the I don't know the specific type of fracture that he has, and there's obviously some subtlety in terms of if it's complex and broken into like a lot of small pieces, or if it's a simple fracture, meaning that the bone is just in 2 pieces. I would surmise from the recovery that they've told us that it likely is a simple fracture that some stabilization will allow for early weight bearing. Um, Obviously, the upper extremities are really important for all these guys, particularly Dallas. Um, what I would guess is that he probably broke his ulna, which is the bone along the outside of the forearm. because that bone, first if it was closer to the wrist, I think they would have said he broke his wrist and not his forearm. And that bone in particular, you can put a rod down the bone, which stabilizes it and allows for some early weight bearing. So just from the recovery, because typically for something like this, you would think the recovery for a professional athlete would be, like probably at least 2 to 3 months. So I think the fact that they're going to let him start early weight bearing and potentially get him back early implies that they put a nail or a rod down the ulna, and that it was maybe an isolated ulna fracture, which would still hurt quite a bit, but would portend a much quicker recovery. You don't want to fracture around the joints if you can help it, because obviously there's cartilage that's even more delicate there.
Is that why there was discussion that they were going to send him for an MRI too to see the extent of the damage there?
Yeah, yep. Because you'd want to look at the rest of the ligaments in the forearm and make sure that, we think about these broken bones, but obviously whenever there's enough energy to go through to break a bone, all the soft tissues and ligaments also get beaten up. And so the MRI is prudent to make sure that there's not some other subtle ligament injury that would also have to be addressed. And I think you could again infer from the recovery timeline that there probably is not a bad ligament injury. It's just a broken bone, and luckily, the bone will heal.
Yeah, I thought that was good news, because when I was watching the game and you saw how he instantly started holding that arm, I was thinking it could have been a
Yep.
season-ending injury. So 4 weeks, it'll be tough. It'll hurt this Eagles team, but a lot better than being out for the year.
Yeah.
So talking about Cam Jurgens for a second, they activated his 21-day practice window. A lot of people were hopeful he was going to play on Sunday. Eagles played it safe. Turns out to be the right move. They win the game, gives Jurgens now 2 weeks to recover. You think he'll be fine coming out of the bye against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I do. I think that maybe, I certainly underestimated, and it just wasn't clear how serious this foot injury was. It obviously was pretty serious to take him out for this long. Even in practice, he was a limited participant before so he was able to weight bear on it. He was able to walk on it, and he was limited. Um, I bet it was a judgment call, and like you said, it was just them being prudent, keeping him out to let him recover so that he'd be good to go for the rest of the season. I'm optimistic that we'll see him back on the field, when they suit up next.
And another foot injury in the game yesterday was Nakobe Dean. Now, he battled a foot injury early in the season, went on IR
Yeah.
for 4 weeks. Have you heard anything? Is it the same foot? Is it the other foot? Is it an aggravation of his pre-existing injury, or we still don't know?
We still don't know. I did some research and kind of reached out, but they're being tight-lipped about it now. But yeah, it was unfortunate. He poor guy just can't get a break. Just got back, and now he's out again. We'll have to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, but like we've said every week, we don't love that you come on and talk about injuries, but fortunately, these still seem like injuries where guys can battle back from. Outside of the Zach McPherson, Avonte Maddox injuries early on, a lot of these other injuries hopefully are just weekly injuries and not season-ending injuries. So, well, I appreciate you making time. Next week, we can't have any injuries to talk about, fortunately, because it's a bye week. So we'll see if the doc does, in fact, join us or not, because for once we won't have injuries to talk about. It'll be good news. Well, hopefully we won't.
Yeah.
Hopefully nobody gets hurt in practice, knock on wood. I don't want to
Yeah.
jinx us here. Or on
Yeah.
their bye week, God forbid.
Ugh.
But everything's good, Doc? Everything is good in your world?
Going great. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
We
I'm
love having you,
excited.
man.
I mean, the birds look good. The birds look really good yesterday.
Dude, 8-1, man. We will take it coming out of the Super Bowl hangover, quote unquote. We're in a good spot. We are in a good spot.
Halfway through. Yeah.
Yeah, we are in a good
we're
spot.
good.
So
I still think we're going to have you make this point a lot. I think we're going to see still, with the exception of Avonte Maddox, at least most of our starters ready for the playoffs. Because overall, like you said, these are still soft tissue injuries that are hopefully recoverable quickly.
yeah, and I would say, hey, don't jinx it them making the playoffs. But after that win yesterday, and I'll let you run, After that win yesterday, the Eagles now have a greater than 99% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And how about this? A 69% chance of being the number 1 seed in the NFC. That is awesome. That's why I said
awesome.
You look at these first 9 weeks and you got to say massive success for this Eagles team. But
yep.
Doc, I appreciate you, man. I will talk to you soon. I'll let you know about next week, but be good, brother. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Always good to get joined by Dr. Radcliffe, man. I'm not kidding. He is maybe the smartest person I know. Went to Harvard undergrad and then Duke Medical School. And he actually can talk. He's actually not bad to talk to because sometimes you get those guys who are so damn smart you can't even communicate. But he's a good dude. Really like Dr. Radcliffe. Orthopedic surgeon, has offices in Cherry Hill and down in Summers Point, New Jersey at the Spinal Disc Center. So hopefully you don't need him. But if you're looking for a good orthopedic, he's your man. He is your man. So let's just talk a little bit more about this running game before we take our first break, because I talked about it with Ray Didinger. I've been talking about it on my Instagram page a lot. And again, guys, if you're not already following at Legal Hands to the Face, at Bill Colarulo on Twitter, head on over, give me a like, give me a follow. We're posting multiple pieces of content a day, all Eagles, all the time. So head on over if you just can't get enough Eagles content like me. But you look at this running game, and this has been a luxury of this team over the years. We saw it last year about how good this running game could be and how it could take over games when the other areas of your offense are struggling. But it hasn't been the case this year. And it's fine. They're still putting up a lot of points and they're still putting up a lot of yards. But you are going to need to establish the running game later in the season and especially in the playoffs when you're trying to close games out. Because look at just what happened. And I mentioned this to Ray Didinger, but look at what happened in that Dallas game. Eagles go up 28-17. In that fourth quarter, Dallas Cowboys start to dominate. They come down, they score a touchdown, they go for 2, and thanks to our man BG, Dak Prescott steps out of bounds, doesn't get the 2-point conversion. It is a 28-23 football game. There's 6 minutes, 23 seconds left on the clock. Dallas has to kick the ball back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this is what they were so good at last year. Last season, that offensive line and that running game would have taken 4 or 5 minutes off of that clock. 6 minutes, 23 seconds left. And I don't want to hear it's because the defenses are stacking the box. They were stacking the box last year too, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. But what did the Philadelphia Eagles do? 6 minutes, 23 seconds left. They go 3 and out. They run the ball twice, and it's 3rd and 3. And I talked about Brian Johnson. I did disagree with this play call. 3rd and 3, 6:20 left. At that point, a little under 6 minutes, probably 5:45 left at that point. And they call a deep pass to A.J. Brown. Incomplete, stops the clock. You've heard Nick Sirianni talk about how it's like 1st and 9 every time they get the ball because of the brotherly shove. So on 3rd and 3, at that point in the game, you have to run the football. Even if you only pick up 2 yards, you got the brotherly shove in your pocket. But they don't get the first down. Okay. Not sticking to the run. Well, then they get the ball back after 2 back-to-back sacks by Brandon Graham, showing up when we needed him most. Eagles get the ball back with 1:17 left. Again, they go 3 and out. 3 runs, can't get the first down. The running game has been an issue, and you heard me give the stats to Ray Didinger. 3.1 yards per carry for our running backs against the Dallas Cowboys. 2.9 against the Washington Commanders. They couldn't run the ball against the Commanders either when they got it back. There was 4 minutes left on the clock when the Eagles got the ball back in that Commanders game, and they couldn't run out the clock. They only had 3.4 yards per carry against Miami. Only 2.35 yards per carry against the Jets. And these are the running backs. That needs to change. They need to fix that this bye week. If I'm Brian Johnson and I'm Nick Sirianni, I'm trying to figure out how we can establish the run so it is effective going forward. And I know there's different theories for this. One of the theories is that Cam Jurgens went out and that's hurt them. Hasn't helped. Tyler Steen wasn't great yesterday. Sua Opeta was up and down when he was in there. I know another factor is they don't call enough run plays. They did this weekend. I was okay with what they did against the Dallas Cowboys. They called 33 runs. In previous weeks, they weren't calling it enough. And then the third theory, and this is probably the most accurate theory, is that with there being no threat of Jalen Hurts running the football, it is not opening things up for the running game like it did last season. And that's where I'm leaning towards being the main culprit for why this Eagles team hasn't been able to run the ball as successfully. Because you saw it last year when Gardner Minshew stepped in. Even though the offense was effective against the Cowboys in that game, their running game wasn't as effective. Because when the quarterback is not a threat to pull the ball and run, now it goes back to being 10 on 11. And I think you guys know what I mean by that. There's 11 guys on offense. There's 11 guys on defense. But in a normal offense, it's really 10 on 11 because the quarterback usually doesn't run the football. Even the Tom Brady's of the world, greatest quarterback of all time, were not necessarily a threat to run the football. So you're able to put 11 defenders on 10 guys. But when you run an offense like that RPO offense that the Eagles ran so successfully last season, it's now 11 on 11 again because the quarterback is in every play, has the ability to pull the ball and run with it. Without that threat being there, this running game is struggling, and they need to figure out a way to fix it. And I know we're 8-1. And everybody, oh, relax. I posted a video on my Instagram. I have some people saying, we're 8-1, shut up. You have to identify issues so that they don't come back to haunt you down the road when the games matter most. And you have to be able to run the clock out in this league when you have a lead. And if you can't do that against these better teams, it's going to be a problem. So the Eagles need to fix it. And if it's just because Jalen Hurts isn't healthy enough to run the RPO, they have to figure something else out and pivot. But hopefully he gets healthy enough. And I see Ben Kaiser in the chat that Penny got a couple touches. A lot of people keep asking me about Rashad Penny. I don't know what's going on with Rashad Penny. I talked to Derek Gunn on the JAKIB Sports pregame show last week. He said he's just there as an insurance policy. Other people tell you he just doesn't have it anymore. He must be shot. They gave him 2 carries. He looked all right in those 2 carries. But we will see if they continue to give him the ball at all. But that's going to be an issue that I think they need to fix. But, guys, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, and I want to hit you with a little Eagles trivia like I do every week and see if you guys can guess the correct answer to this Eagles trivia. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
There is a reason why the Garden Medical Spa, with 4 locations in New Jersey, has arguably the best customer reviews in America for a boutique medical spa. At the Garden Medical Spa, there is no fluff, just results. For the best in Botox, chemical peels, dermal fillers, hydrofacials, laser hair removal, and so much more, please visit thegardenmedspa.com. Book an appointment now in Voorhees, Sewell, Collingswood, or Northfield. Thegardenmedspa.com. No fluff, just results.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA state tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Legal Hands to the Face show. I appreciate all you guys being here tonight. We're going to wrap up the show in a few minutes. Get ready for Monday Night Football. Not a bad game tonight. Doesn't really have any impact on the Philadelphia Eagles. Has an impact on my fantasy football team, though. Actually tied going into tonight with the Jets and the Chargers. I have the Chargers kicker, and he's got the Chargers defense. So we'll see how all that plays out. Tied, but I'm kicking butt this year in fantasy football. Mainly because I got my man Jalen Hurts at quarterback, which has been great. He is a fantasy football machine with the amount of touchdowns he scores. And that brings us to our Philadelphia Eagles trivia question. So you probably saw that Jalen Hurts passed Randall Cunningham for the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in franchise history. Jalen Hurts now has 33 rushing touchdowns. Randall Cunningham had 32. But that's not the trivia question. The trivia question is, who rounds out the top five? You have Jalen Hurts now at number 5 overall, not just quarterbacks, number 5 overall in rushing touchdowns with 33. Who can name the other 4 players in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history with the most rushing touchdowns? 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'll start to give you guys those in ascending order. See if anybody can guess who's sitting there at the top. But before I give you the answer, let's just do a quick look around the NFC. No game. This would normally be the time in the show when we would start to preview this week's opponent. No opponent this week. So what we get to do is sit back on Sunday, watch the Red Zone channel, and root against certain teams that we need to lose. So let's take a look. Really, there's 4 teams in the NFC that have a shot of catching the Philadelphia Eagles. And really, the Dallas Cowboys now are almost completely out of catching this Philadelphia Eagles team. It's going to be really difficult. But you have the Philadelphia Eagles on their bye. Dallas Cowboys sitting at 5-3. They're going to play the New York Giants this week. Giants are an absolute mess, unfortunately, for them. But that game, you're probably rooting for the Giants. If they could upset the Dallas Cowboys, we'd like to see that happen. But there's three teams that we need to worry about now, and that's the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, and the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle just got absolutely crushed by the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to be playing at home against the Washington Commanders. Should be rooting for the Commanders that week. We'll see what happens there. But then the two big ones, the San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, I think, have the best chance of catching the Philadelphia Eagles simply because they have the easiest schedule the rest of the way out. They have a road game next week against the Los Angeles Chargers. So we'll see if the Chargers could upset the Lions in that game. But we need the Lions to lose some games because you look at their remaining schedule, they have some easy games on the schedule. They got the Chargers. They have the Bears twice. They have the Green Bay Packers, the New Orleans Saints, the Denver Broncos. They're at Dallas. And then they have two against Minnesota, which when Kirk Cousins went down, I was thinking those are going to be easy games. But my man Josh Dobbs, I really like Josh Dobbs at quarterback. This kid, if they could just give him a chance to stay on a team from training camp and work with the same coaching staff and the same offensive coordinator, could you imagine what he can do? He's constantly getting thrown around. Was in Tennessee for a short time last year, started a playoff game. Then he opens up this year in Arizona. Then he's now with the Minnesota Vikings, and he wins that game for them in that comeback win. Just really like Josh Dobbs. But as much as I like Dobbs, this week for the Detroit Lions, root for the Los Angeles Chargers. And then the 49ers are on the road this week against our man, Dougie P. Dougie P has the Jacksonville Jags playing some really good football. That is a good game to watch on Sunday. 49ers at Jacksonville. So be sure to check that out. But I see you guys in the chat trying to guess the answer here. And I don't know. I'm gonna find out if any of you cheated here. Steve Rufo, did you cheat or did you just know the answer? I think Steve Rufo is cheating in the chat. But we got Ben Kaiser saying that Shady and Westbrook have to be in the top 5. You are correct, my friend. LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook are in the top 5. I got Mark DiStefano saying Westbrook, Montgomery, McCoy, and Waters. For who for what is not in the top 5. Ricky Waters does not make the top 5 for rushing touchdowns. Who else we got here? Steve Rufo. I'll come back to you in a second. Xavier Spencer, Deuce, Van Buren, and Wilbert. And he throws in Westbrook. So you are close. Deuce Staley does not break the top 10 either. Steve Rufo nailed it, and I still think he cheated. I think maybe he Googled this. But number 5 right now is Jalen Hurts with 33 rushing touchdowns. Number 4, Brian Westbrook with 37 career rushing touchdowns. LaShawn McCoy, 44 rushing touchdowns for the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 2, Wilbert Montgomery with 45. And then coming in at number 1 all-time for the Philadelphia Eagles, Steve Van Buren with 69 rushing touchdowns. But what's crazy is if Jalen Hurts can stay healthy, he will probably break that record. He's already got 33. He's got 7 so far this season, which puts him on pace for 13 rushing touchdowns. Last year, he had 13 rushing touchdowns. So he only needs about 3 or 4 more seasons, and he should get there. And Jalen Hurts would have the most rushing touchdowns in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. And Steve Rufo saying he did Google it. Come on, Steve. You can't cheat, my man. He cheated with Van Buren. But, guys, I appreciate all of you being here. And just as a reminder, we do this show every Monday night at 6:30. But we do the Philly Sports Power Hour on the JAKIB Sports Network every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Tomorrow we have Eagles insider Dave Spadaro joining the show. Thursday, we have Thursdays with Farzy, my man Mark Farzetta, my partner in crime on the JAKIB Sports pregame halftime shows. So he joins us every Thursday. And we spend most of our time talking Philadelphia Eagles, but we also talk some other sports. So I know the Sixers are on right now. We'll talk a little bit about the Sixers, who have been pretty hot as of late. We'll see if they can come back and win tonight. But they've been pretty hot as of late. We'll talk about them. We talk about my Flyers. If you guys follow the Sports Power Hour, you know I'm a Flyers fan as well. I know some of you guys in the chat are Flyers fans. And when the Phillies were, man, that still hurts. But when the Phillies were in their Red October, we were talking some fighting Phils every day as well. But so be sure to check out the Philly Sports Power Hour. And guys, one final reminder, if you're not following Legal Hands to the Face on all your social media platforms, head on over. You can follow here on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads. We are everywhere. We're posting daily content. So be sure to check it out. And I appreciate every single one of you who took the time to engage in the chat and spend some 90 minutes with us. Hopefully, I'll see some of you guys tomorrow at the Philly Sports Power Hour. Have a great night. And as always, go Birds.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.